Minglawa, welcome to MITV special program Perspectives. For this program, we have invited Honorable guest speaker Sia U Ichan, who is Councillor of Myanmar Press Council and Chairman of Myanmar E-Commerce Association, so also Vice Chairman of Myanmar Digital Economy Association of UMFCCI. Sia Minglawa, thank you very much for your time. And this time, what we are going to discuss. I think it's about minimum wage pros and cons. So please tell us, what is the minimum wage?
Well, minimum wage is the lowest wage that you have to pay the labor workers, labor workers, hourly workers, the hourly rate that you have to pay. So if you're working monthly, you multiply how many hours you work per day, and multiply the number of days that you work, that becomes the minimum wage or monthly wage that you have to pay. If you pay anything below that, you're going against the law. You can be arrested for that.
So there are certain rules to pay what cost we have to pay for the minimum wage.
Correct. Last time, minimum wage, I think it used to start with 4,008 or 3,006 per day. Yeah.
So what the primary objectives of having a minimum wage?
The primary objective is to lift people out of poverty. So the employers cannot abuse the people. Right? So sometimes, you get children or you get sons, they send them from the villages, you pay very little, right? So then they are just earning below the poverty line, so which is not very good. So the primary objective is to lift the general population or poor population out of poverty level, so that they have a survivable income.
So, as you have mentioned about income, so what about income equality?
Yeah, having a minimum wage also lift up the lower of the lowest population income. So somehow it's also helping contribute towards the income equality a little bit. If not, the poor become so poor, right? And the rich are still so rich. So by lifting the basic wage of the people, uneducated, lowest earning people, so you somehow improve their income. As a result, you also narrow the income inequality between the different segments of the population.
So does it improve the economy or make people motivated to work?
Yeah, obviously the answer is yes, right? Because by having a minimum wage, right, so more people will join the workforce. Right, so more people joining the workforce mean more productivity, so it improves the economy in some sense. And plus, people are having a higher than previous wage, because minimum wage is always set slightly higher than the lowest wage, so slightly higher. So it seems reasonable to deduce that it will help a little bit in the motivation. Yeah, especially for the people who are not earning very little and not making a day's ends meet.
So, what is the major con?
The major disadvantage of having a minimum wage is it leads to unemployment. Right? Normally, if you look at the world statistics, right, the countries that set a minimum wage always have higher level of unemployment than the countries that doesn't have a minimum wage. Right? By setting a minimum wage, what happens is, employers are forced to pay people who doesn't contribute to the company or to their business more than what they're actually worth. Like, for example, let's say you have zero experience. You work in a tea shop. You can only work as a laborer in a tea shop or factory or whatever. You have zero education. Right? But if let's say I'm the employer, if I'm forced to pay higher than what he deserves, then I will try not to hire him yet. I will seek the experienced people. Right? Let's say minimum wage is, let's say, 2 lakhs a month. Right? So 2 lakhs, with the current market is 2 lakhs, you can have experienced people. Right? But if zero experience, I will only probably pay 1 lakh or 1.5 lakhs. Right? Then, if I were to hire these people, then I pay them 2 lakhs, when I can at the same time get somebody who is slightly more experienced, I will only get the experienced people. So the end result is the people without experience don't get hired. Because once I hire them, I'll be overpaying them from the employer perspective. So as a result, it leads to unemployment. You know, I am unwilling to give them a training or opportunity anymore because I'll be overpaying them. So that is the major,
Cons.
the major con, the disadvantage of having a minimum wage.
So, other impacts for this?
Other impacts is, minimum. Have you said the minimum wage? More people incomes certainly increases, right? The people who are earning, let's say 1.5 lakhs, because of the minimum wage, let's say we set at 2 lakhs, so then their wages increase. So what I mean, they have more spending power, so it may lead to inflation. Which will actually technically offset the minimum wage increase anyway, right? Because things get more expensive, because people income suddenly goes up. And the other one is because of the minimum wage, employers will not give the training opportunity for the uneducated population or inexperienced population anymore, because we don't want to pay, because it costs them more money, right? Because before the minimum wage, I can pay you very little, and I take training, I train for you. Then only when you're experienced, I increase your pay. Now you zero experience, zero education, I still have to pay the minimum wage. So I might as well not hire you. So, and I'll try to, especially in factories and all the labor intensive factories, I'll try to automate, use some machines to do that, because the labor cost suddenly becomes expensive. So that will lead to automation, hiring lesser number of people in a business or a company or a factory.
So, what about governance issues?
From the government perspective, as well as governing the minimum wage rate, is really such a pain. Because you see, when you set the minimum wage, what happens is inflation will follow, right? Because the general wage level increase, right? So inflation will follow, then things become more expensive. So next year, what do you think the labor unions and workers will ask for? Higher minimum wage, higher minimum wage, right? So this cycle of things will never stop. Next year, then we will renegotiate for minimum wage again. The government have to be involved in setting the minimum wage again, right? The minimum wage set, no side will be happy, and employers also not happy, workers also not happy, right? Because employers, because the inexperienced, uneducated people, I got to pay more than what they deserve. Workers also not that happy, because every time you set the minimum wage, the inflation follows, and they still cannot have enough money to survive. So so every year it has been a struggle, always to renegotiate. It never ends up discussion on the minimum wage. That doesn't really add much value to the economy. If they don't agree on the discussion, what will the workers do? They will go on strike, and this is even more disruptive to the economy. So my advocate has been not to set the minimum wage in the first place. So that will even let the market forces decide. Like Singapore don't have a minimum wage, Hong Kong don't have a minimum wage. Their economies are doing so well.
I see. Okay, thank you for sharing your knowledge about the minimum wage pros and cons.
All right, thank you.
You have been watching MITV special program Perspectives. Thanks for joining us.